Hey guys, Charles from Haltz Boots here, and today we're going to be doing an in-depth and on-foot review of what I would argue is everyone's kind of quote GOAT boot, the Hypervenom Phantom 1 Elite. Alright guys, so we're going to do an unboxing of a pair of Hypervenoms, not the pair I'm wearing. You can see this is the original box and it's a size 8, but it's not the pair I'm wearing because the only pair I have in my size actually is the Blue Lagoon with like the orange swoosh. I'll throw a picture up right here. And you know, that's just how it worked out, but I figured it'd still be cool to do an unboxing for you guys. So just to kind of see an original pair here. Just kind of open them up, and you know, it is one of the cooler colorways. Like it's got the light orange with like the orangish red and the white swoosh, so that's pretty cool. I got 2 of them there. I did not get the original bag with these when I bought them, which kind of stinks, but it's still cool to kind of have a few pairs in hand. So I have this orange color. We'll move the box out of the way. I have the green color there. I have arguably the uglier of the colorways, the like black and gray there, or I guess silver maybe, and then I do have a pair of the OG colorway with the original bag, just no box. So you know, if you want to look here, the OG Hypervenom ones, kind of cool if you ask me. So hopefully you guys aren't too upset that I use this for the thumbnail and kind of clickbaited you a little bit, as I'm not wearing this color, but I thought it would bring back a bit more nostalgia. It'd be just kind of a cooler thing to look at than the Blue Lagoon pair, and you know, obviously I'm trying to get more viewers to grow the channel, so it is what it is. But I'm gonna be honest with you guys, my thoughts on this boot are not very great. You know, my thoughts have never been based on, you know, the performance. It's always just been the durability, how overhyped it is, how demanded it is by people who've never even worn the boot, and just kind of, it's just overrated. Like, it's not a bad boot, but the biggest issue for me has always been the durability and the amount of like younger kids and even, you know, older football players who have messaged us, hey, can I get this boot? It's the best boot of all time. Can you source us a pair? It's like, 1, no, we can't because they're too expensive, and 2, you've never had a pair and you don't understand how bad they are. Now, don't let me like block you from getting a pair or be a hater or anything like that, but that's just kind of always been my opinion, and kind of just a bit of like frustrations, I would guess, over the last 3 years of selling boots. And you know, kind of just one of those things where it is what it is. But again, it's just kind of how I felt about them, and nobody ever seems to believe me except for a few people when I say it's so overrated and it's not a good boot. Moving on to the tech specs, one thing that people actually really do like about this boot, and I will say it was kind of nice when I was wearing it, is the Nike skin. It's like a really nice layer on top of like the regular boot and the synthetic material, and it's just kind of like almost a waxy feeling. I wouldn't say it's quite like the grip knit on the Phantom GX, but it's definitely something that may not provide a whole lot of grip on the ball, but it definitely does a little bit, I would say, and is kind of just cool to feel, and you can tell it's gonna be like a higher performing, higher quality boot. Now, that doesn't mean that this boot is durable. I often found that they ripped pretty quickly, and I've already been testing the Blue Lagoon pair that I'm wearing, and I've already had some quick signs of sole separation and, you know, just the boot falling apart. So that's not great, and that's again one of the main reasons I dislike this boot. Why would you want to pay so much money for a boot that's going to fall apart right away? And if you check out the sole plate, it's pretty much all conical studs minus a blade here and here. Like, it's a pretty neutral sole plate. Even the heel here has no blades. It's just pretty close together studs, and that's not something you see a whole lot these days. Oftentimes it's just blades on blades unless it's an AG boot. So it was nice that, and I would say this is probably one of the better sole plates at the time, you know, rivaling the Magista Ober 1, because I think these were out actually at the same time where the sole plates were all conical. So you know, it was kind of more of a trend back then than it is now. And overall, I'm assuming that this sole plate's gonna do pretty good. I'm not gonna bend this boot because it might break to show you the flexibility, but it is a fairly stiff sole plate if I give a little bit of give there. So that's kind of cool that it's a neutral sole plate, but it is very stiff. And again, these days it feels like sole plates are getting a lot more flimsy. And on top of that, having these smaller conical studs, you're not gonna get a whole lot of grip when you're on the pitch. At least on a grass pitch, they're just not very long. I mean, you can see here, that's pretty short for a stud these days, and it's almost more like an AG stud or like sole plate, even though it is like conical and neutral. So it's probably a sole plate that I'm gonna be wearing pretty much all on turf. I know turf usually damages boots pretty quickly, but again, most of the time I'm training and playing on turf, and I don't really have a nice grass field. to train at and test boots at, so it's mostly gonna be on turf. There was a time when Neymar was actually slipping around on a grass pitch. You know, all professional pitches are watered when they're grass, and he just couldn't get his grip out there, kept sliding. Now, did he have the Tiempo 4 sole plate? Yes, because even today, most pros still like to get that Tiempo 4 sole plate put on their boots, but he ended up switching to metal studs. So was it the Tiempo 4 with metal studs sole plate, or was it this sole plate with metal studs? I have no clue. I'd have to maybe see if I could take a better look at the video, but you know, just kind of a little extra like history piece there for you. Pretty much all the tech that there is for this boot. You know, you've got the Nike skin, this sole plate here, the fact that it rips super quick. And actually, I don't know how well you can see in here, but there's actually like a honeycomb texturing all along the inside of the boot, providing like a support cage, if you will. And it's the same exact thing that was on the Tiempo 5. So this is my pair that I actually got blacked out. But you know, you can see inside here that it's all honeycomb texture. So you know, that's just kind of an extra thing that I thought was really cool. I mean, these boots, both the Hypervenom 1 and the Tiempo 5 were around at the same time, but that's just kind of cool that they had that in there, and that this boot is almost the same as the Tiempo 5 in terms of the inner structure. So to wrap this review up, I've kind of talked about a few things, and I just kind of want to say what I'm going to be looking for when I'm testing these, and what I'm kind of like hoping for / expecting. And one of the things is going to be this upper. How well does the Nike skin perform? Does the touch on the ball really feel that good? Is this that good of an upper that's why people want this boot? Not because it's a hype boot, but because the touch in this boot is insane. Now, the other thing is the comfortability. How comfortable is this with that internal like honeycomb frame on the inside, that texture, the same as the Tiempo 5. You know, Tiempo 5 is leather on the outside, but it's the same exact design, same webbing on the inside. So how comfortable is that? And the last thing is gonna be durability. The Hypervenom 1 is famous, and I mean absolutely famous, for just falling apart when you wear it in just a few sessions or a few times. So now that the Blue Lagoon pair that I'm testing is almost 10 years old, and it was brand new when I first put them on, it's just been sitting. So now it has the added factor of age, like aging and time, and added upon the poor durability anyways that the Hypervenom 1 had. So it's gonna be very interesting to see how well they hold up. I'm expecting them to fall apart, and I'm not even gonna be able to finish the review. And you know, for the most part, I've always had a negative view on the Hypervenom 1. So I'm really looking for, you know, that comfortability, the durability, and how well the touch is on this boot. And then I'm also gonna be looking to see if this boot changes my mind. Wearing it after all these years of not wearing it and hating this boot, is it actually a good boot, and have I always just been a hater? And that's pretty much all I have. So I'm gonna go ahead, turn the camera off, and over the next week, I'm just gonna go through and test out the Hypervenom 1. All right guys, so it's been about a week and a half, 2 weeks since I did that unboxing, and I know I showed, I think, 4 different pairs of Hypervenoms that I had in the collection, and I don't remember if these actually made it into that video because I might have already been wearing them at that point, just to kind of really get a good like test out of these boots. So I ended up wearing the Blue Lagoon color, and it's got like a, you know, that really nice blue color. It does have a bit of discoloration. I don't know how well you'll be able to see, but like right in this spot here and there, it's like just an aged color has happened, or like an aging like effect has happened to these. And I don't know if they were left out in the sun by the owner who I previously bought them from a few years ago when I first picked these up. But I kind of got a good deal because it wasn't like the full color. So there's a bit of aging on these, and yeah, these boots I think are 9 years old, almost 10 years old. Yeah, these were made in October or September of 2014, so 9 years old almost. And it's kind of just amazing that they've gone this long, and you know, they didn't really hold up well, and I'll kind of get into that towards the end of the video when I talk about the durability, but we're gonna go ahead now and jump into the full review. All right, so kicking off the review, we're gonna work away from the bottom up, and we're gonna start with the sole plate. Now, this is a sole plate I didn't have very many issues with. The only real complaint I have is on turf. I think I slipped maybe once or twice I think probably clocked 5-ish hours wearing these total. So I only slipped once or twice, like I said, and it's just because they're shorter studs. There's not as many as you can see here, and I'm okay with that. I'd rather slip just a little bit than getting my like studs stuck in the turf. I'd rather have like an under aggressive sole plate than a aggressive sole plate. So, you know, and everybody's gonna slip no matter what. It just happens sometimes. So maybe I'm just being too nitpicky about it. But other than that, I really like this sole plate. They ended up keeping the same exact sole plate for the Hypervenom 2, which I thought was pretty cool. And that just goes to show they didn't need to do any tweaks or adjustments there. It did pretty decent on grass, although I was playing on a pretty hard packed, like just dirt and like kind of like a dirt ball pitch, if you want to call it that, or a proper like American Sunday League pitch, just kind of kicking some balls around and just getting a feel for them. So they did okay on that as well. But it was just a really poor pitch, so I couldn't really give you any other insight other than they just did okay. I just don't have any good grass fields right now that I can train on that aren't like an hour, 2 hours away. But for the most part, I don't have a single issue with this Soleplate. I think it was very well done. It's fairly similar to the Magista Obra 1, the boot that came out around the same time as this, having conical studs. The Obra 1 has slightly longer studs, I want to say, but still overall, really good Soleplate, had no issue there. So before I talk about the upper, I'm going to talk about the lockdown on this boot, and this is the worst performing thing about this boot and one of my biggest issues. Now, maybe it's attributed to the fact that this boot just doesn't hold up at all. It's not very durable, and I'll kind of get more into that on the durability later, but I didn't feel like my foot had a good lockdown at all with the Hypervenom 1s. And anytime I was really cutting, like I noticed one time, it was either like a game or like pickup or something, but somebody like cut across me with the ball, so I went to step right, and as I went right, like I felt my studs stay, but I felt the entire upper of the boot completely shift, and absolutely no real stability when I had that cut. And I thought I tore the boots, to be honest, and I was a little worried for myself there because I kept going for like a quarter of a second. I was like, this is not good. Luckily that's okay, but lockdown on this boot is very, very poor. It was better when it was not broken in by my foot, but usually when a boot breaks in, it's obviously you might lose a little bit of stability, but it's molded to the shape of your foot. And I just didn't have that. I didn't feel the lockdown was there, and I didn't really know that because I haven't worn Hypervenom 1s in a long time, but I didn't remember the lockdown being that poor, so maybe I got unlucky. But honestly, I really don't think that this boot is very good. For a boot that was marketed for attacking players, cutting back and forth hard on these, I would be worried because one, I mean, maybe the durability, but I could already, like the sole plate's already peeling away, but every time you cut, it just felt like the sole plate peeled away more. So that's just something to note about these, and something that I would say, like, look, I know everybody likes this boot, it's very hyped up, but it's not a really good performing boot. Like maybe you want to argue it's comfortable, and it is a comfortable boot, but for how poor the durability was, I would not recommend anybody like buying this boot based off that. And maybe one of the attributing factors was the fact that this entire, let me see if I can't get a good picture here, I'm gonna do like a separate section that I'll throw up here, but the entire heel counter has like peeled away from the boot, and it's kind of like black on black, but I don't know how well you can see that, but like this is heel counter. This is supposed to be attached to the boot, and I didn't actually realize that this extra piece of heel liner here is actually stitched in on the inside separately. So you kind of have the upper of the boot, and then it folds up and back down, if that makes any sense, and it's re-stitched again. And it completely peeled off, so maybe that's why I had such bad experience with the lockdown. Now, when I say peeled off, I mean ripped off. Like this boot cannot handle its own stitching. So, that's not something that I have had an issue with before in any boots, wearing them immediately. So I'm not going to say that this is due to how old these boots are. I'm going to say it's due to poor design, because I've worn boots that are 7, 8, 9 years old sometimes. I have a few pairs, and I don't know if I've done any reviews on them yet, but they just don't rip like that right away. On to a more positive note, if we want to move on to the upper, this upper was actually really nice, and I didn't remember it being this quality. Now, if this is what you want to argue makes this boot good and why the Hypervenom 1 is the GOAT boot or one of the best boots of all time, I would maybe hear your argument out, but it's definitely very comfortable. The touch on the ball is pretty decent. I really didn't have any issues getting into this boot and breaking it in. It took me a minute to break it in, but I still didn't have any pain when breaking it in, if that makes sense. There was no discomfort, and the upper was nice, and having this honeycomb texturing on the top really did help. And I did like the Nike skin, but it's not something that I think is game changing. It's not something that I would go out of my way to pay $300 for a used pair or $500, $600, $700 for a new pair. It's just not that, it's not that quality, like that kind of quality where I would pay that much, like an 11 Pros kind of leather, like a K leather. And I would argue that leather is better than this by a thousand miles if you have the right leather boot. So I will say that it is I will say it's a nice upper. It did the job well, it was comfortable, the touch was there, but you can get that same kind of quality touch from a boot like the Furon V7 Pro, where it's a different kind of upper altogether, but it had almost the same exact feeling. So you know, again, good upper, doesn't make it a GOAT boot. Now we're gonna move on to fit, and I went with my typical size 9 US, and there was a bit of extra room in the toe. I would say almost a half a size, but not anything to where I had like a mental thought of my boots feel too big and I feel like my toe is dragging. I didn't have to think about that at all, so that was kind of nice. I think I could have gotten away with an 8.5. I didn't have an 8.5, and I'm almost more worried that if I had an 8.5, the boots would rip even quicker due to the stress of my foot trying to stretch it. And you know, it fit pretty well when I was still breaking it in, and once I broke them in completely and the upper became super soft and everything was molded to my foot, that's when I really felt like this boot was a bit bigger on me. That's when I really felt that it was a bit bigger on me, and I was still able to play in them and whatnot, but you know, it's kind of hard to say what really this boot should be, because I wouldn't be able to wear them enough to tell you if you could go half a size down or from what you normally wear, just in fear of them ripping. So I would say, against my greater judgment, if you want to purchase a pair of these, go with your normal size in Nike, go with your normal size in a Vapor or a Superfly or whatever Nike boots you're currently wearing. I think you'll be able to get away with that pretty well. Now we're gonna move on to why I really don't like these boots and why I don't think they're the GOAT boot, and that's durability. These boots do not hold together well at all. These things are like wearing paper mache. First session I wore them, I thought, okay, you know, maybe they might actually hold together. And I had a few like 6v6 games back to back. So I wore them one game, I looked at my feet, okay, they're doing pretty well. Second game, immediately getting this sole separation here. And I'm gonna actually get a better video for you guys showing all the actual like damage and separation if I can. But there's just separation all along here. And that's the first sign of it. And I figured, you know what, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. Maybe I just kicked the ground, caught that, but no, sure enough, happening on the outside here, happening here, you know, by the heel counter here is where really a lot of the boot started ripping on either side. And you know, for you guys who really want to say that this boot is the GOAT boot and the only reason they rip is because they're so old, I'm telling you that's not the truth. You can talk to anybody. You can talk to, I'm assuming SRFU, I don't know him at all, but I'd assume he'd say the same thing. Noah Kavanaugh, who's really credited in the boot reviewing community, he'll tell you that he really likes this boot, but he went through them back in 2013, 2014, 2015, like every other week almost. At least that's when we were talking about it, that's how it seemed, because he had so many pairs of these. So, you know, this is a boot that is not worth the money that people are reselling them for. And again, if you want to buy them for nostalgia or because you had good memories in them, you know, go for it, I guess. It's your money, but there's so many other older boots you could buy for the same price or cheaper that are I would say just as good or better. I would definitely say better, because there's a lot of boots better than these that are older. So if you're gonna go with a pair of old boots, I really think you should be careful buying these, because some people have bought Hypervenoms from like Halt's Boots, the website, before, and I put a disclaimer like, hey, these are Hypervenoms, and I think it was Hypervenom 2s actually, so you know, it wasn't the ones, but I said, these are Hypervenom 2s, they've been known to rip easily, they're also old, so be careful when you wear them. Sure enough, they happened and people got upset. So it's like, you guys just need to know that these boots are gonna rip on you, and you just can't get upset about it. And if you're okay with paying whatever you find a price, maybe you find a really good deal on a pair, because I've seen some before, and you figure, you know what, I'll just wear them and see what happens, go for it. And let me know, honestly, let me know. But I've heard so many people like, oh, these boots, I had a pair last me for 2 years, and I know a lot of these kids are lying, because it is kids who were not even born in 2013 are telling me they had pairs for a long time. And a lot of people who actually ask us on the website, or not on the website, but on the Instagram and all of our socials, can you get us Hypervenoms? They're the best boot of all time. It's like, you didn't even wear the Hypervenoms, so I don't know why you're saying that they lasted. Like, the takedowns of these lasted years. I still see takedowns on all, like a lot of the pickup leagues I play in, when I ref sometimes, all these like older adults are still wearing like the takedowns of the Hypervenoms. And I don't care that you wear takedowns, that's not my point at all. It's the fact that the takedowns are more durable than these. So I don't know if people maybe got it mixed up with, I had takedowns and they think they're the top ones. Maybe they did have the top ones and I'm just gatekeeping, if you want to call it that. I don't know, but that's just always been my biggest issue with this boot, is the durability and the fact that everybody always wants them. So sorry for my rant. This has just been 4 years now of running Halt's Boots, and every week I think I get maybe 10 different people asking about Hypervenom ones. So sorry about that, but that's how it is, and that's not my opinion and my experiences. I will say though, one thing that leaves opportunity with these ripping is learning how to fix your boots. So I definitely want to try and fix these. I've seen some people add extra stitching and all these weird techniques, so I think that's something I'm going to do in the future. I might actually wear these until they separate completely, just training on my own. I'm not going to wear these in a game again because these will not last, and I would argue almost dangerous at this point with the amount of separation and the fact that one heel counter is completely ripped all the way on the inside, and the other boot, I think it's halfway ripped. So there's that, but I will try and figure out ways to repair them. You know, I think you can use like shoe goo or something, but I've also seen ways to stitch boots up. So maybe you're someone who's a bit more creative, get a pair, wear them. If they rip, you know, maybe you can fix them. And I actually know a few people, what they would do is they'd get these boots and let them rip almost immediately, or they'd even just rip the sole plates off themselves, take them to a cobbler. And if you don't know what a cobbler is, that's a person who repairs footwear, mostly like leather products, but they can also probably do sole swaps and stuff. So, and I know people who just rip them off completely, take them to a cobbler, they'd re-put everything back on there and they were good to go. So maybe that's something you want to do. I'll keep you guys updated on that. It'll probably be like a month or two before I have time to actually like try to repair these and show you, but one thing that I actually did think about during this, and so maybe that's an upside of them ripping. All right, so going over my final thoughts of these boots, and my entire career of selling football boots, so the last 4 years, reviewing boots this last couple months, I've been really, really harsh on the Hypervenom one. This video, I kind of trashed it a lot and probably went on a few rants, but you know, I did enjoy wearing this boot. I actually really like this upper. I don't have any nostalgia attached to this boot, so maybe that's one reason why I just dunk on them so much and really don't like them. But you know, the upper was pretty comfortable. It was cool to try and wear a pair of I will say history, because these are one of the groundbreaking boots. You know, 2014 was huge, 2013 was huge for football boots, and it was really cool to wear them and have this piece of history. And it was also cool to see, you know, it's always nice when people compliment you on your boots. You know, you're wearing Hypervenom 1s, your teammates at practice like, oh, that's pretty cool. Or, you know, some other person's like, hey, I like your boots. Like, that's pretty cool. So that's something I also did like as well. But just getting to experience them was nice. Just, it's not a boot that I would recommend anybody purchasing just because of price. They're overhyped and the durability. If we move on to my final rating of the Hypervenom 1, I really struggled to figure out what to rate these at. I was gonna argue as high as 8 out of 10, but then I felt like 8 out of 10 is too high because they just rip right away. So if you have a really nice boot but you don't even get to experience it, what's the point of having it? It's not like it's that old. I mean, yeah, I mean, it is 8, 9 years old, but the shells just shouldn't be ripping like this. So it's really hard for me to gauge it. The performance was okay, you know, the lockdown wasn't there, the comfortability was there, and you know, just kind of like wearing old boots was nice and get that experience again. But you know, I'm kind of stuck on a rating. I'm probably gonna go with the 6 out of 10. And which is not even something I would give, something I thought I would give these boots, but 6 out of 10 where it's gonna be for me. And that's what I gotta go with. So 6 out of 10. Let me know. Did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? So that's all I have for you guys today. My entire review on the Hypervenom Phantom 1 Elite. Hopefully I answered any questions you guys had, any thoughts. Maybe if you're someone who thinks these are the best boots, maybe I changed your mind, maybe I didn't. It's gonna be hard to change your mind if you think they're the GOAT boots. But yeah, just drop down in the comments. I love chatting with you guys, like I always say. It is fun to see what you guys have to say. I like your guys' takes on my opinions because some of you call me out for just some of my takes, which is fun, and I enjoy that, so that's pretty cool. And don't forget to leave a like, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next review.